If you think the Vortex helps you get things in focus, try becoming a premium member on RealCatholicTV.com for the best shows on earth. The benefits are out of this world.
A national Catholic newspaper is giving voice to dissent as they speak with loud support for a dissident Australian bishop. Homeschoolers are barring the door after a home invasion is condoned by a federal judge. And we'll have the latest from the courtroom as justices compare Obamacare to broccoli. Those stories and more just ahead on Catholic News Roundup.
Catholic News Roundup is brought to you in part by PewSitter.com, your online Catholic newspaper for the third millennium. CatholicMediaCoalition.org, in line with the Church, online with the world.
And TheAmericanCatholic.com, politics and culture from a Catholic perspective.
Hello and welcome to today's edition of Catholic News Roundup. I'm Matthew McAuliffe. Catholic newspaper Dissents. The National Catholic Reporter newspaper is openly supporting dissent from church teaching on sexuality, calling for a new sexual ethic as articulated by dissident retired Australian Bishop Geoffrey Robinson. Robinson preaches that, quote, God is not easily offended when it comes to sexual acts, and that instead of asking ourselves whether or not this act is unitive and open to procreation, we should instead look at the intention behind sexual acts, based on his notion that, quote, sexual acts are pleasing to God when they help build persons and relationships, end quote. The retired Australian Bishop Robinson's teachings on sexuality were condemned in a statement written in 2008 by the Australian Catholic Bishops' Conference after he wrote his heretical book, Confronting Power and Sex in the Catholic Church, Reclaiming the Spirit of Jesus. Robinson is currently on tour spreading his erroneous teachings, speaking in Maryland at an event held by the homosexual activist group of Catholics known as New Ways Ministry, speaking in New York, and just recently Detroit, and is now on his way to Chicago after lunching with retired activist Bishop Thomas Gumbleton. Obamacare in court update. The balance of government power was the topic of discussion on Tuesday in the Supreme Court, and yesterday seemed to be much the same as justices heard arguments over Obamacare's severability. Justices were very skeptical in talking about where government power would end if the mandate to buy insurance was allowed to stand. Justice Antonin Scalia even suggested that the government could make people buy broccoli if they wanted to, based on the Obama administration's arguments. In the discussion over severability, or which parts of the law should be allowed to stand if the insurance mandate is struck down, a number of justices seemed favorable to keeping parts of the law, though Justice Scalia showed signs he is ready to strike down the whole thing. As yesterday being the last day for oral arguments in the court, justices have until June to make a decision regarding the constitutionality of Obama's signature piece of legislation. Horrific home invasion. A federal judge is condoning the home invasion by social workers into the residence of an Arizona homeschooling family without probable cause, after a still anonymous tipster reported to authorities that John and Tiffany Loudermilk's children were in danger. Social workers showed up 2 months after the call, threatening to take their children into custody immediately if they did not cooperate, calling in local sheriff deputies to reinforce their threats. After the 2005 incident, the Loudermilk family took their case to court, where the search was determined illegal, only to have a 9th District Court judge overturn the ruling after an appeal, even though the social workers' intrusive search turned up no problems in the household. The Supreme Court has refused to hear the case, and the family's attorney, John Mason of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, says the outcome of the case could create a ripple effect, attacking the rights of families to react to unwarranted search attempts such as this one. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a few seconds.
Catholic News Roundup is brought to you in part by NewOxfordReview.org, the voice of Catholic Orthodoxy, in print and on the web, and RenewAmerica.com, expanding the influence of America's grassroots in the cause of freedom.
The numbers are in, and Mitt Romney has fallen to new lows. According to a poll out Wednesday by ABC and The Washington Post, Romney trails Barack Obama by 19 points in basic popularity, and Romney's 34% share is the lowest of any candidate in ABC Washington Post polls since the 1984 primaries. In other news, Gingrich is cutting back on staff and travel, saying he will not be flying out as frequently to upcoming state primaries, while cutting 1/3 of his full-time employees and replacing his campaign manager. He says money is tight and that his campaign will focus on communicating with voters through video, internet, and social media campaigns, as his spokesman R.C. Hammond puts it, quote, readying the campaign for the convention floor. Lip slip or papal prayer? Human freedom is on the mind of the Pope, made clear by the interjection of the word liberty into one of his speeches. Anti-Castro protesters in Cuba typically chant the word liberty in Spanish at their rallies, and that is the word Pope Benedict went off script to say in one of his speeches to the Cuban public. The pontiff told the crowd they were in his prayers, that he prayed for guidance for, quote, the future of this beloved nation in the ways of justice, peace, freedom, liberty, and reconciliation, end quote. Pope Benedict XVI has now seen firsthand the evils of corruption in Mexico, and with the oppression of religious freedoms in the United States not far from his mind, the Holy Father leaves Cuba promising prayer and sacrifice, hoping to increase religious freedom in the troubled island nation. I'm Matthew McAuliffe. Thanks for tuning in today. Be sure and tune in tomorrow for your daily dose of Catholic News Roundup right here on RealCatholicTV.com. Also be sure to check out The Vortex, where Michael talks about weakness in the Catholic Church confronted by shock troops from a different culture. And just a reminder, Michael Voris recently sat down with Mr. Richard Thompson of the Thomas More Law Center in this latest edition of our interview program, Roman Forum, to be released this Sunday. To see this and many hundreds of hours more of our Catholic programming, just visit RealCatholicTV.com website to become a member, a premium member, today. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to tell all your friends about us. And as always, God bless you.